Hi guys, welcome back. I know it's been a couple of weeks now that I've last graced you with my opinions with regards to IEMs, but anyway, I'm back and I've decided for today to bring you kind of a review which encompasses a whole bunch of different IEMs, all under $100, all single DDs from a whole bunch of different brands, and in this way kind of give you a general idea of what is available under $100. This review will also maybe perhaps bring out a few standout units which will then be part of my favorite IEMs for this year under $100 in the single DD category. Anyway, with no further ado, let me get started. So the first one I'm going to bring out is the CVJ Neko. Okay, this beautiful IEM. This is it comes available in well, actually, to be truthful and to be fair to it, it initially was launched as a limited edition model, which is this one here, the Neko limited edition with this waifu kind of faceplate painting and so on and so forth, or metal shell. I believe it's an aluminum CNC machine shell. It uses a driver which is very similar to the driver used in the TXS and CVJ. If you guys recall, in the last couple of years they've really come out with a nice variety of single DD drivers of various qualities, and especially the latest models of this year and a half, they've been pretty impressive. The collaborations, well, the CVJ area, but then the collaborations as well with R2E3, with the Mermaid 2 and the Medusa and so on. And anyway, they initially launched the Neko, which was priced around $50 odd. Interesting IEM. The only problem with it was at that price you also started having other IEMs which maybe made more sense. So then they launched now more recently the Neko, but in not a limited edition, guys. It's you either get this gold version, which I personally think it's the part. Brings again a nice cable with exchangeable terminations and everything, as you can see. Good quality cable. It's available in the gold and the silver. And the reality is that at this price, which is now roughly $30, it does make good sense in various aspects. I mean, we had the TRN Conch, if you guys remember, which is around the same price with its exchangeable nozzles, full metal shell. That they at this price, the Neko kind of ticks the same boxes as the TRN Conch, which is metal built, nice cable, exchangeable nozzle, exchangeable terminations. The only thing which isn't obviously exchangeable is the termination on, or the nozzle on the actual IM. And then it has this very nice, engaging, fun tuning. It's a tuning which you could consider V-shaped. A nice mid bass presence, decent enough sub bass extension, and then a nice meaty or lively, let's say, area between 2.5 and about 8 kilohertz. A slight little peak at around 5K, but nothing that isn't easily controlled by that extra bass energy that you have from behind. And overall, the Neko is a very fun sounding IM. That's I think the best way that I can put it. It really sounds engaging. It sounds fun. It's not going to be, let's say, the last, the last word in terms of overall audiophile balance, but that was not the purpose, I believe, in the Neko. I think the purpose in the Neko was to sound good, to have an engaging, fun sound. Great bass, clean, it's dynamic, it's not a sluggish bass in any way, and then have an upper mids and treble area that can keep up with that bass. It is an IM that I found was best at lower and mid volumes. At upper volumes, on occasion, there was a little bit of, I wouldn't say aggressiveness or harshness in the sound, but no, things became just a little bit extra lively, at least for my presence. But what I can say is that, like I mentioned before, it is a competent IEM for the $30 odd that it costs. You can't really complain. Technically, I would say the timbre and the tonality are going to be the standout. You know, even though the sound is colored, it's just got a very nice and engaging tonality to it. Detailed retrieval is more than sufficient. Soundstage, imaging, again, more than enough. I think really the timbre and the tonality, the fun factor, the musicality which the Neko has, I think is the main thing which makes it you know, an interesting IM, and one that, you know, can be considered. It's got for the sake of comparison, it's got a sound which is kind of very reminiscent of the Ibasso Gelato Junior. If you guys recall, this was launched end of last year, beginning of this year, and they've got a kind of very similar vibe of sound going. I would say that the Neko is probably a little bit more polished than the Ibasso, and a little bit cleaner sounding, doesn't have as much mid-bass presence as the Ibasso has, and so the overall balance of sound is a little bit better. So it's got this kind of vibe going for it, okay? Anyway, that's the CVJ, the Neko. Let's move on here to another IM. Let me get these two out of the way here. Okay, so that's the Neko out of the way, which I think, as I said, is a nice, engaging IM if you're looking for a fun sounding IM. The next one is an IM from IVIPQ, which is called the Trimonster, which is this full metal IM here, which has a shell which is kind of, we've seen this shell before. You know, it's a shell which does ring some bells. I believe the CVJ may use a very similar shell to this. But anyway, what is the IVIPQ Trimonster? It's a single DD, priced at as well the same value as the Neko, around $30. Nice, engaging, you know, fun sound. I would say that the standout here for the Trimonster is how it is able to actually scale quite well, and that is down to the fact that the upper mids and treble, so past 2K, all that whole information is very much controlled. It doesn't peak as, when I show you the graphs you'll understand what I'm trying to say. It doesn't rise or doesn't stand out above the bass performance, and so it scales quite well. I would say it's an IM that, contrary to the Neko, at higher volumes it actually benefits it and comes alive nicely. But comparing it with the Neko, which, you know, for the same, they are basically the same price, they are kind of similar. At lower volumes and at mid volumes, the Neko definitely does stand out because it's got that extra clarity in the upper mids and the treble, which definitely you know, makes it come up on top in terms of bigger soundstage, better imaging, just a lot of more detail in terms of the vocals, female vocals especially. At higher volumes, the difference is less so pronounced, mainly because on the one hand the Neko does start becoming, as I mentioned, occasionally here and there a little bit too intense for my liking, while the Trimonster kind of is in its element. You know, at higher volumes things just kind of have scaled in a better manner, and it just feels you know, more solid. It's got an LCP diaphragm driver. I'm trying, actually, let me just quickly check. Yes, exactly, this has got an LCP diaphragm, while the Neko has a composite gold, what is it that they called it? Let me see here. It's a black gold diaphragm. I don't know what they mean by that. All I do know is that CVJ during 2022, 2023, and 2024, they launched a whole bunch of different single DDs with different materials. You know, in a search for the one that was the better, let's say, IM that could then maybe use a single DD, either in a single DD application or a hybrid application. And the TXS, as I mentioned earlier, was quite a surprise. Especially, it really did sound really good, and the Neko basically uses that same driver but an updated version of that driver. And it's this difference in the quality or the material that they use in the diaphragm that ultimately dictates to a certain extent the amount of extension that the Neko has versus the amount of extension that the Trimonster has. LCP drivers are known for a more warmer presentation overall because of that diaphragm material. So in terms of the bass and the low mids and the mids, they are in their element there, while they lack a little bit of extra brightness up top. And when you are searching for that brightness, most of the times it then becomes a little bit unpolished and aggressive. Actually, I've seen some attempts at LCP sounding better up top. Fair enough, granted they weren't high quality LCP drivers. I'm sure maybe if it's in a high quality LCP driver, that could be mitigated. But anyway, IVIPQ Trimonster, a nice full metal build, interesting price, like I said, $30. An IM which I would say will do best if it's going to be used at higher volumes. Maybe this could be an interesting alternative. Continuing here with IVIPQ, I'm going to show you the latest single DD from IVIPQ, which is this one, but I'm also going to bring out its previous two models, which I think do make sense. Okay, so it initially all started with this one here. Okay, beryllium coated driver, as you can see. It then was upgraded or exchanged in 2024. So 2022 and 2023 you basically had this one. In 2024 you got this one, which, as you can see, the shell changed ever so slightly. Let me just try see if I can hold it here in my fingers somehow. Okay, so if you look carefully, it's not easier. This is what happens, you got small hands. So on the left side we've got the 2022-23 version. On the right hand side we have the 2024 version. As you can see, there's slight difference in the shell design. And now this is the 2025 version, which the shell is more reminiscent of the second generation, but not exactly the same. It's also slightly different. If you look carefully, there's a slight difference. There's also a slight difference in terms of the angle. The initial one, the second one had a little bit the second one had a little bit less angle in the nozzle, if you compare. Okay, and the latest one basically retains the same angle as the original. Okay, all right. Sound. The original one had peaks at 2 and let me actually, well, first of all, focus. Okay, my apologies. As I was saying, the original version had peaks at around 2.6 kilohertz and then at about 5 kilohertz. It wasn't a bad sounding IM by any means. It had beryllium coated driver. It sounded decent enough. It kind of had potential, and that's what I did. I retuned it, a simple mod, a tangstrom oxygen or tanya filter on it. That's all that's needed. Just slap it on top of the original one, and the sound automatically changed very much. Those peaks are gone, especially the peak at 5 kilohertz is completely gone. It now still peaks at 2.5 kilohertz, but at a lower value, substantially lower value, and then starts dropping off. When I show you the graph, you'll understand. And in that format, which is what I've got here, in that modified format, this is an absolute beast. It was an IM sold at around $30. It was phenomenal, honestly. A pleasant surprise, which I think did not get more attention because of the fact of coming from a brand that was not known for making IMs to start with, but also because it had been tuned in a less than ideal manner. Okay, if they had tuned it in this way, they would have been able to compete against the likes of the cadenza, the KiwiEars cadenza. Anyway, that's that one. The second generation, they kind of listened to what I told them, because I mentioned to them that they should have done this small mod to it, and they did it, but they also lowered the bass slightly, and so the sound became a very vocal focused sound, very clean, very detailed, so really nice. It retained the same driver, but I think the fact they took away the bass kind of took the magic out of the IM itself. Enter now the third generation. And the third generation, they've again used a similar driver like they've been using so far, but they have now opted for again a slight retune. They've maintained basically the mids, upper mids that they had from before, but gave it more bass, and more bass even than the retuned or than the original version had. And overall, the reality is this tuning that they've now done in the third one is actually the one that I think is the one that makes the most sense. If on the other two there was some extension past 10K, and when I show you the graphs you'll understand, and this one actually lost a little bit of that extension, I think that what it gathered or what it gained in terms of the sub bass extension and that balance then between the mids, upper mids and treble is more than making up for a little bit of sparkle that we might have lost up top, and gives us a sound which is very sub bass dominant. Yes, it is, but it's at the same time not lacking any amount of cleanliness or detail. So in terms of the sound, as I just mentioned, sub bass focused, a great transition into the mids, no bleed, that it's there's no bleed, nothing, a nice gain, a nice pinna gain peaking at around 2.5 kilohertz, and then it maintains itself, plateaus itself across, and starts dropping off after 5 kilohertz. Clean mids, detailed, male vocals will be the standout, although female vocals are also quite nice. It scales really well. You can really crank it up really nicely, much like the Trimonster. You can really crank it up. It keeps its balance really nicely. I would even say that at higher volumes, it does come alive, even with a little bit extra, but at lower volumes, it is already plenty detailed, much better than the Trimonster in that aspect. Treble, no, not aggressive. It's a very elegant, very well executed treble. In terms of its technicalities, I would say that the chamber and the tonality are the standout. Soundstage and imaging are adequate, fine. Probably the soundstage is a little bit better than the imaging, but nothing too significant there. Definitely the timbre and tonality. I think it's the high level of musicality that they've been able to implement here in the IVIPQ, the Single DD, that is the standout. It's a really very musical. It's very musical, and that is a thing that I really appreciate about brands, when they don't just make IEMs and don't just churn out the IEMs left, right, and center, but they try to give them some character, and definitely the IVIPQ, the Single DD, does have that character. Its issue, as I mentioned, is just that it has a price which makes it go up against a whole bunch of other brands which perhaps have more name, and that makes the choice then become, do I go for a safer sounding brand, or do I go for something which is unique and different? But I think the IVIPQ, the Single DD, has done enough to earn its right to be, well, not only the best IEM that they've made, for my opinion, but an IEM that will definitely stand out in this crowd. Anyway, that's the IVIPQ there, so let's just put it here back in place. Let's go now here into the KiwiEars BELLE. This is the latest Single DD. There is another one that I could have actually brought out from KiwiEars, which is the Singolo, but I didn't bring it out. If you guys want me to compare it with more detail, I'll definitely will do so. But anyway, what is the deal here then with the BELLE? It all started out with the Cadenza. The Cadenza was an IEM, or is an IEM, that has a sound which is very much the sound of the IVIPQ, the Single DD, very similar, a little bit less bass perhaps, but it's very much a sound which is, nice mid-range presentation, great extension up top, especially with these whiteboard tips. It sounds absolutely phenomenal, and for the longest period of time, the Cadenza was definitely a go-to. I mean, this came out, I believe, now in late 2022, so it's an IEM that's been around for quite a while. Definitely a really nice IEM. Then they released the Dolce, which was a more bass heavy IEM. Great bass, definitely. I mean, that's something that cannot be denied. I think that the problem with the Dolce was that it's although it gave that extra mid-bass thump there between 100 and let's say 350 hertz that the Cadenza didn't have, it increased unnecessarily so the upper frequencies between 3 and 10 kilohertz. in a manner that it didn't allow the Dolce to be an IM that, in my opinion, I would consider an IM that scales well. While the cadenza does scale decently, it does scale well and maintains itself always pretty balanced, maybe at higher volumes and with one or two songs, you can maybe find that the bass is just on the limit, and maybe, you know, a little bit more extra presence in the mid bass would be welcomed. The Dolce, no, the Dolce starts to scream at higher volumes, and that can be a little bit of a problem. At least for me, it's a little bit of a problem. But at low volumes, yes, it was engaging. And if you don't have a powerful dongle or something of the sort, yes, definitely the Dolce, that makes sense. What is the Belle? The Belle is a combination of the lessons learned on both of them. So the Belle is basically the bass presentation of the Dolce with the upper mids, upper mids and treble of the cadenza. And I think that in a nutshell basically says everything. It says what? It says that we then have in the Belle the clarity and the detail of the vocals and the instruments that we want, and that the cadenza was able to give us, but without lacking some mid-bass punch with certain songs. So it's an IM that will definitely be a little bit more versatile in the genres that it can play, and will be an IM that, as the cadenza, scales well, and actually when it scales, it even comes alive more so. Definitely, let's say a solid improvement over these two, and priced kind of basically the same price. And I would go as far as saying that even maybe better than the Singolo, because the Singolo had attached to it a price point that it was hard to justify. I understood what was the whole premise of the Singolo, with that whole attempt with the with that helmet's resonator to kind of create a dip in the frequency range between the bass and then the mid bass and the treble and the mid, sorry, in an attempt to clean up the mid bass and give it a kind of more of a subwoofer feel. Honestly, I didn't feel that it worked as intended. I understand that there were certain constraints with KiwiEars, and it wasn't entirely KiwiEars' fault that it didn't work. Yes, that helmet's resonator in a more elaborate build with a little bit more time spent with an associated crossover network to help as well with that attempt that they were doing with the tuning, that would be something that I would like to see. So a more premium KiwiEars is definitely something that I would very much like to see from them. They have the know-how, they have the ability, and I think it's about time, to be honest. I think honestly KiwiEars can make a single DD between $150 and $200 that really kind of embodies all of the lessons that they've learned now over the last few years that they've been around, and they can make, in my opinion, a single DD that can definitely stand up with the likes of, you know, the other $150 to $200 single DDs that we have out there, the Twisted at the Wood Note, the Medusa, the CVJ R2 E3 Medusa, even some stuff from Tangem and so on. So that's a message that I would like to see KiwiEars make a nice single DD, a really nice premium single DD. But anyway, until that comes out, we have here the Belle. So great bass, really clean, detailed. I didn't like the stock cable. The tips are okay. I did try a few other tips. I would say definitely the tips is something that you're going to have to play around with. But bass is phenomenal. It's clean, it's detailed, it's engaging, very musical. Mids, male and female vocals, incredible. Timbre and tonality, again, very well done. It's the best out of these three, and you know, just quickly comparing with the ones that we've talked about before, I would say the timbre and the tonality here is better even than the IVIPQ, or to be fair, on the same level as the IVIPQ, the single DD, and at you know, at less cost. And this, you know, this is exactly what I'm saying. If the IVIPQ single DD had been priced at something like the Belle here is priced, it automatically would make itself something that, you know, many of us would say, oh, okay, this is maybe something that I would like to think about, you know, okay, why not consider it, you know, because the reality is when you actually look at the graphs of the two of them, they're not that much different. Where that extra sub bass is present in the IVIPQ is at the frequency point where you don't really notice it, to be honest. It's going to be very hard. The rest is very similar, the way that the mids, the upper mids, the treble, the extension past 10Ks and everything. So they are very similar in their presentation, to be honest, with the advantage for the Belle obviously being that it's a lower price point. So there you have it. Belle, definitely the best out of this, let's say, trio from KiwiEars. The Singolo is also from KiwiEars, but because it was a collaboration, I preferred not to have it included here in this group. But like I said, I talked about it, so you guys know where it stands. I think the Belle is definitely better than the Singolo. The Singolo had a good driver, as I mentioned, but anyway, let me carry on here. Otherwise, I'm going to be repeating myself. So, KiwiEars BELLE, definitely another solid little IEM here, priced at under $100, actually priced under $50. You could consider a bracket up to 50 and then a bracket up to 100. So under the $50 price point, definitely the BELLE is a solid solid option. Let's get this out of the way here. That's it. So we've talked about the Neko, we've talked about the IVIPQ, the Single DD, the Trimonster, we've talked about the cadenza, the Neko. Let's talk about now. Let's talk about the CVJ, the BQEYZ. Let me just get here the graph. The BQEYZ, the knee. What is the knee? The knee is, and I understand why brands are doing this now as of late. So IEMs which they say are IEMs tailored for gaming. I understand that, but ultimately, I think there's no such thing, to be honest. There's no such thing as an IEM that's for gaming or an IEM that's not for gaming. I would say that there are IEMs that are tuned in a manner where gaming will be something that they will do decently, and other IEMs which are tuned in a manner that gaming is not where they will excel, because there has to be a certain degree of technical capability on an IEM, and as well an ability to be played relatively loud, and convey a sense of realism, which is very important. Gaming doesn't involve music as much, but more real sounds, and that realism of sounds has to be present. But a well-tuned IEM will do that, and will do music as well. And the knee is exactly that. The knee is an IEM which is priced at around $55 more or less, from BQEYZ, using an 11mm driver. BQEYZ always likes using these bigger drivers. It's got some reminiscence here to the Topaz, if you guys recall. This is not the stock tips. I tried the stock tips, and the stock tips did work quite decently, apart from one detail, which is the outer part of the tip is very soft, and it breaks seal very easily. So I ended up using these tips, which are from Panon, which are kind of similar to the liqueur tips that they have. And basically with this tips, the knee sounds incredible, honestly. It's got that BQEYZ sound. It's got that tuning which kind of is very reminiscent even of the Frost, of the BQEYZ Frost. Very clean, very detailed, very precise bass. It's not a bass which lingers, so it's a clean, fast bass, which will help with what the intended purpose of the IEM is, but it will also help with music, and really is good. It has an initial peak at around 2K, which will help with giving certain vocals a little bit of a liveliness that is needed, and then there's a dip there between 2 and about 5.5K. That dip does help with certain female vocals, especially when you start cranking up the volume, which the knee does allow you to do, to not become harsh. And then there's plenty extension past 10K, not only because the tuning had been done that way, but also because these tips do allow for there to be quite a bit of extension up top. So in terms of soundstage and imaging, spot on. I would say the detailed retrieval and micro and macro details are good, but for example, when I compare it to the IVIPQ, the Single DD, or the BELLE, it maybe lacks a little bit behind those two. It's nothing significant, but maybe lacks a little bit, and I think that it maybe lacks because that area there, as I mentioned, between 2 and 5.5 is slightly brought down to allow the IEM to be able to do certain things well, but by bringing it down, then it robs a little bit of that extra cleanliness, that extra detail that sometimes we want. Okay, but that's just it's a nitpick than anything else. Like I said, comes with a nice case, which is usually what BQEYZ does. It has got decent tips. It's got an exchangeable cable, termination cable. Just the tips that maybe you would want to look into other tips that will not break seal as easily as the stock ones did, but again, maybe you don't have that problem, and I had it, I encountered it. That's the reason why I had to start looking for the tips and eventually settled for these. Well, to be honest and to be totally fair, with the darker colored tips, these ones here, if I actually don't mess around too much with the IM, and if I find the right position, it can actually hold it, for quite a bit. But eventually, it will kind of break seal. And I guess it's not even the tip's fault. I guess it's just my ears, which have not been cooperative. Poor genetic feature of my ears. But anyway. Just getting back here to the sound. So bass is great, mids are fine. Apart from that slight little recess there that on occasion can just take away a little bit of life to certain songs, but not in any point a deal breaker. And then plenty of detail up top, nice big soundstage. I would say soundstage is definitely the standout characteristic here. Imaging, and then timbre and tonality. So contrary to the other IMs before, where the timbre and tonality was the standout technical capability, here on the NIE, I would say the standout is the soundstage and imaging, and then the timbre and tonality. Mind you, there's not much in it. The difference is, maybe to even be fair, you could say that they all tie up in first place. So there we go. BQEYZ NIE, a nice IM, solidly built, typical BQEYZ, accessories and attention to detail, well priced, $50. For what it offers, I think you can't really complain or say that there's anything really wrong with it. So that's that. Continuing with this vibe of gaming IMs, there's another IM here which I have, which is the NICEHCK Tears. It has a couple of interesting features. First of all, that it brings a dedicated cable with DSP and the app, which works phenomenally well. But normal equalizer, which you can select the different frequencies and adjust quite well, and also a parametric equalizer. You can store your own settings. It's got 3 preset settings. In terms of its build, it's a resin plastic kind of build. It inside sports a tuning network, or I don't know how to even call it, but it has a maze, labyrinth internally, which tunes the IM. Open back design, where we can see here. Let me show you here. There we go. So okay, it's an open back design, although the vents are facing forward. As you can see, the shell itself is totally closed up, but it's an open back rear design. So there's the other hole there, the other tuning nozzle there. That's okay. All right, and that labyrinth is in essence a helmet resonator. Has allowed for the Tears to have a very interesting sound. I have to say that the Tears was definitely the one IM that I was very surprised with it. I was not expecting, honestly, at this price, which is $30, to find something that was going to surprise me in such a positive manner. I've got it here with with a different cable, because although the DSP and its accompanying app and its intended purpose is for gaming, or more gaming orientated, if you want to put it that way, is really good. I would definitely say, if that's what you want to use it for, you will not be disappointed. The fact that you have a DSP which is so easy to tune and works so well, and actually does, it's noticeable what it's doing in terms of the tuning to the IM. So it works in that aspect. So the simple fact that you have that capability there automatically is ticking the right boxes. It's proper. It's again an IM which falls within that category of the TRN conch, and I'm mentioning the conch again because the conch is an IM that doesn't make sense to be $30 for all that it offers and how it's good that it sounds, and having such a good driver and everything. And this is basically the same situation. We have an IM which is designed in a manner which you usually expect to find only in way more expensive IMs. I mean, this sort of attention to detail in that internal labyrinth containing the helmet's resonate and so on is something that you would expect on something from maybe Tanstrom, and something that would cost $150 or $200, or from other brands, like maybe from Moondrop you would expect something like that. I don't think from NICEHCK anybody was expecting something like this, especially at this price point. I'm not saying that they don't have nice IEMs. They do have nice IEMs. You know, the Himalaya is one such IEM. As I was saying, the Himalaya is one such IM, but obviously an IM priced at a completely different point of value, $300. That has a CNT driver, and it's down to good old-fashioned tuning and nozzles and so on and so forth. So it's a phenomenal sounding IM. But this, you know, it's a cheap driver. I mean, this is basically a titanium driver, nothing titanium coated driver, nothing, you know, that we haven't seen before. $30, and with this level of input placed into its development, you know, it begs the question, you know, will, let's say, a future single DD, higher end single DD from them, or flagship single DD from them, also have the same technology? I would say that if something like this was applied to the let's say a future Himalaya or something of the sort, you could possibly be getting a seriously sounding single DD, because without a question, I think the secret of the Tears being so good is the fact that it has that labyrinth inside. It's, you know, they took the time to make sure that they really made it sound good, and it does. It sounds phenomenal. Bass is great, although the bass, and when I show you the graph, you'll see what I mean. Although the bass, you know, the 100 point is almost corresponding to kilohertz. It's a little bit below, but there's not much energy passed. So it's a really nicely, very tastefully tuned IM. With the DSP, I didn't like the stock tunings, to be honest with you. The balanced and rock, if memories doesn't serve me wrong, doesn't you know, play tricks on me. I didn't really like those tunings, but the custom ones that I did make, I did enjoy. I did prefer, and they basically helped correct the little only nitpick that I have on the Tears, which is the fact that the Tears is a little bit like the Neko. It's an IM that at low volumes and at mid volumes sounds absolutely phenomenal. Everything is balanced, everything is exquisite, but then once you pass a certain level of volume, the upper mids treble can become a little bit too intense for my liking, and the EQ with the DSP allows that to be corrected, and that's down to the fact that it's using a titanium driver. The titanium driver, yes, to give it extra clarity, extra detail, which is exactly what it has at lower volumes. But then at higher volumes, it can get a little bit rowdy, not to the point that it's aggressive or problematic in any way, because then again, you're not going to be listening to this thing full blast. But you know, it just makes it, you get tired of it after a while. Nevertheless, really nice IM, really nice IM. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this was one IM I just was not expecting it to be this good. I definitely was not expecting it to be this good. I will also mention another thing, which is it does require you play a little bit around. At least I had to a little bit around with the tips to find a tip that really you know, fits nicely. And I think one of the biggest problems has to do with the angle of the nozzle. You see, the nozzle hasn't got much angle to it, so it ends up sitting in my ear in this position like this. So the angle of the nozzle here is maybe something which was perhaps the only part where they missed the boat a little bit. Anyway, that's the NICEHCK out of the way. Next, I'm going to talk about the COZOY D1. This is a single DD priced at around $30 with a graphene driver. A nice little cable attached to it. I didn't like the tips, to be honest with you. I'm going to be straightforward, and I didn't enjoy the tips. The tips, I think, are not allowing the KOZOY, the D1, to do what it can do. These are the tips. They are reminiscent of the tips that GPZ used to give on their IEMs a couple of years ago. So not really the tips that I would recommend. I've got two here because, you know me, sometimes I like buying two IEMs. I'm actually going to be retuning that one to just see what I can get out of it. In terms of sound, what does the D1 sound like? And let me just get here the graphs of what I'm speaking. I just don't blab nonsense. Okay. It's got a very nicely executed bass presentation. The 100 kilohertz point doesn't exactly correspond to what I consider the ideal, which is it's below 2 kilohertz. It's around 1.8, 1.7, and it's got a little bit of energy up top past that still, which basically means that at lower volumes, it's got a nice amount of detail. Graphene drivers are not known for being too detailed, so that extra energy that it does allow it to be, let's say, suffice and you know, balanced enough. I'll guess the problem with the D1 that I encountered was once you start pushing the volume a little bit more, it just kind of feels like it's on the limit. And I would say definitely choose what source you're using with it. Definitely choose your source carefully. It does have a nice sound. It's got nice clean bass. It's not a bass monster by any means. So it's not that it got loads of sub bass extension or loads of mid bass impact. If maybe they had a little bit extra mid bass impact, I think, and that's what I'm going to be attempting to do on the other one. If they had a little bit more mid bass impact, I think that issue that we then encounter in the upper mids and treble would be mitigated. And what is the issue that we encounter in the upper mids and treble when you start pushing the volume? It just it's not that it becomes elegant or it loses its elegance or its composure. I would say it just kind of depending on the song, it will just break up completely. Graphene drivers are known for, well, any driver, irrespective of the tuning, but any driver with specific diaphragms are known for specific characteristics, as I mentioned earlier. You know, if you're using a bio diaphragm, usually the upper end is not very extended. LCP, the same situation. On the other hand, if you're using DLC or CNT, they've got a nice mid-range and upper frequency presentation. Beryllium, the same situation. Titanium have a nice detail up top, but they can be harsh. And graphene is known for having a nice amount of detail up top, a nice warm presentation in the mids and so on. But then the diaphragms of graphene drivers seem to kind of they just lose their composure all of a sudden, and they become very lo-fi almost. And I think that's the issue here with the KOZOY. At higher volumes, it just is not well mannered. That's the only real criticism that I have to it. Now, are there ways around it or ways to make it not be so? Yes, one of the ways is by using, for example, these liqueur tips. And these liqueur tips, especially the large size, make the IM not fit ideally inside the ear. The IM actually does fit a little bit outside. But actually by fitting outside slightly, and the graph that I have for it is showing precisely that, it kind of balances everything up top better. Instead of there being a rise from 2.2 and it rises into the 5.5, 6 kilohertz area, no, it kind of plateaus everything across across from 2.2 to about 6 kilohertz. Everything gets kind of plateaued, and that plateau does allow then for the sound to be a little bit more well mannered at higher volumes. But at mid and low volumes, which is ultimately where we are going to be listening, you know, the D1 sounds good. The bass is a little bit, like I said, it's clean. It's a high quality bass, although there's not as much quantity as I personally would have liked. But again, not a huge issue. That's not a problem. The real only little nitpick that I have with it is the fact that it doesn't scale as nicely as I would like, and that's lack of scaling so well, especially in the upper mids and treble, is noticeable if you don't pay attention to the tip you choose and to the source you choose. But overall, considering it's a relatively new brand, well, it's a new brand, and this is a new product from them and so on, I have to give them their deserved merit for attempting to do something nice. I think its biggest issue irrespective of these small little nitpicks in the sound, is ultimately the price. At $30, I mean, I've shown you here the NICEHCK Tears, I've shown you here the Neko, I've shown you the KiwiEars BELLE. It's got a lot of really solid competition, a lot of solid competition. You know, even the cadenza, there's a lot of IEMs at this price point, which make very solid arguments for themselves. And you know, that's ultimately the biggest problem, going for an unknown brand, which this is their first IM, or going with more solid presentations from, I'm not going to be saying more solid presentations, but going for brands which have got a more solid name for themselves already in the market. That's, I think, is the biggest issue that COZOY will face. But anyway, you know, congratulations to them. That merit has to be given when it's deserved. Okay, let's now go to the duo from Moondrop, the Lan2 in its reference tuning and in its bass tuning. So I've got both tunings here. These are the stock tips. It brings this adapter cable so that you can connect the 4.4mm plug to a 3.5mm outlet if you have. I would have liked, since they went to the trouble of doing this adapter club, I would have liked that they actually would have just made exchangeable termination, you know. In terms of how the shell looks compared to the previous Lan, just get here, it's basically the same shell. That's the original Lan. This is the Lan2. It's just the Zania on the faceplate that's a little bit more elaborate. I would have liked as well that there to be something else, since they've gone for two IEMs. I would have liked something else that would distinguish them, because the faceplate design is not consistent. It changes very much. Okay, and that lack of consistency makes it a little bit difficult to identify. You know, it's just difficult to identify. You could say that this one here, maybe the plants are on the lower end, and you could say it's the low bass, and this one has got the plants on the upper end. But again, there's no real similarity between left and right. I would have liked either maybe a slightly different color choice, or then just engrave the name bass version or pop version, and then the reference version on the other one. But anyway, what is the difference here between the Lan2 and the original Lan? The original Lan had a DLC, I believe, DLC driver. This one now uses a glass diaphragm driver. The original Lan was known for being detailed, but maybe a little bit overly thin in the bass department. The new one, they've made the reference, I would say, even more detailed than the original Lan, with about the same sort of bass. Let me just quickly get the graphs so that it's easier for me to talk about everything here instead of kind of trying to guess. So where is this? KiwiEars Moondrop, exactly. So 15 is the OG, 14 is the base, and 13 is the reference. Okay, so the OG and, okay, this is the OG and the reference, and then the base version. The OG and the reference, they basically have the same sort of base, but the reference now has more details up top in the mids, upper mids and treble, and I would say that yes, definitely a detailed monster, and it's clean. I mean, it's absolutely, it's the one that when you listen to all of them, it will be the standout in that aspect. Okay, when you listen to all of these IEMs that I've been talking to up to now, it's the one that's going to be standing out. And there's still two IEMs that I need to talk after I finish here with the Moondrops. But that detail does come at a cost, that at higher volumes, that thinness in the bass is apparent. It's a high quality bass, mind you, very high quality bass, but it's a thin bass, okay? And it's noticeable because the difference between the bass and then the mids is a significant one. We're talking about a difference which is of roughly 6 7 dBs almost, and it's a noticeable difference. Clean, detailed, but it's noticeable. On the other hand, the bass version, the pop version, sorry, gives you that extra energy in the bass, which I think is the way to go. And that extra little bit of detail that you might lose, I think, is more than made up by that extra amount of bass, which just makes things more musical. The reference will be for those which like the ultimate in detail. They want their bass to be lean, sliced, diced, you know, squeaky clean, and they want all the details they can possibly have in the world. So female vocals, detailed retrieval, soundstage, imaging, all the last twinkle and sparkle reference, that's spot on. The pop will be for the ones that like to listen to music. I truly, honestly, what you lose in terms of detail to the reference is, in my opinion, is more than made up by the extra bass that you get, which makes music engaging and fun and listening. You know, it's while one is going to become ultimately boring because there are songs that you just need that little extra bass to make it, you know. And so if you like listening to EDM and something, this is not an IM for you. This one will do everything that this one does well, and still do those genres where the reference isn't in its element, will do those genres as well. And what it loses out, you know, it still comes out on top. I still think that the pop still comes out on top. So nice, clean, detailed bass, with a good amount of energy. You know, it's a bass presentation which is very reminiscent, I would say. Even, let me just quickly here get the graphs. It's a bass presentation which is very reminiscent of the bass presentation of the NICEHCK Tears. A little bit extra energy, and also a little bit of extra energy up top. Overall, the actual graphs themselves look very similar. It's got an overall presentation which is actually almost identical to the next IM which I'm going to be talking about, which is the KBEAR Tourbillion Pro. The Tourbillon Pro from KBEAR, I think it's probably their best IM in a long time. The KB01 is an incredible IM, very much under the radar. The Rhodes Finch, again, another very solid IM. But the Tourbillon Pro, I think it's their best, let's say, mid-range priced IM that they've released in a long time. Really, very impressive. But anyway, I'll talk about that in a second. So just getting back here to the pop from Moondrop, compared to the OG and compared to the reference, I think it's the one that just makes the most sense. It's the one that's the most balanced overall. It's got a sound which is actually very when you start listening to it, it doesn't take you long to realize that it's got a sound which is very much Moondrop Aria kind of vibe, Aria 2 kind of vibe. So I think that ultimately is the best way that I can place the pop. If you like the Aria 2, this is a Moondrop Aria 2 with just a little bit extra amount of energy in the bass. I would say about 2.5 dBs up to about 100, from 100 hertz down. It's got a little bit extra bass there. Otherwise, the rest is very similar. So if you're a fan of the Aria 2, if you like the sound of the Aria 2, this is an Aria 2 with a different diaphragm being used as the in the driver, and priced at a lower value, $55. And again, this brings that issue that I was mentioning earlier. You know, at $55, 55, either one of them, at 50 odd dollars, $60, let's just round it off, at $60, you know, when you have something again at this price point, you really have to do something that stands out, because the competition at that price is going to be incredible. You got, I mean, the Puller, the Unichrome, the Tipsy, the M1, you've got oh my, what a blank. You got the Sivga, the Q. You got a lot of really solidly designed and solidly tuned IMs. But I think honestly, having said all of that, I do think that the Moondrop, the Lan2, the pop version has done enough to be an IM worth considering. You know, it's got a proper built Moondrop style, nice driver being used inside, something unique, something different, and it plays really well. Honestly, it plays really well. So definitely something to keep in mind and to consider. As I was talking and mentioning just a few minutes ago, the other IM which I think is definitely a standout, not only from the brand but definitely a standout in this whole group here of IMs, is the KBEAR, the Tourbillion Pro. Beautiful IM, honestly. This is beautiful. I've seen this IM priced at anywhere from $60 to $100. $100 at HiFIGO, for example, $60 on AliExpress. I would like there to be an explanation for such a big variance in price, honestly, to be totally honest. But you know, at $100, it's worth it. Definitely worth it. It ticks all the boxes in terms of its build quality, of its appearance, of its accessories, case, everything. Obviously, at $60, which you can get it from AliExpress, it's a no-brainer. It's probably out of all of the IEMs here, the one that makes the most sense money-wise. In terms of its sound, and as I was mentioning and talking just a few minutes ago, it's a sound which is very reminiscent of the Moondrop, the Lan2 Pop edition, very reminiscent of the Puller Unichrome. Let me just get here. Tears, where are we? Puller Unichrome, number 22, exactly. It's a tuning which is very reminiscent of the Puller Unichrome. And I think that already says a lot. You guys know that the Puller Unichrome is one of the IEMs that I consider to be one of the most solid IEMs under $100. Phenomenal sound, a sound which is very much like the Into-Outer Balance, but at less money, obviously. Of course, when you start, pushing things, the Balance is the better IM, and that does justify it being more expensive. So you could actually say that the Tourbillon is kind of like an IM which emulates a lot of the Into-Outer Balance's sound. And that says it all. I mean, bass is clean, detailed, phenomenally well done bass. The metal shell obviously helping in that aspect. The mids are exquisite. Seriously, the mids are really solid. I'm actually just looking here to confirm what driver they are using in terms of the driver inside, the material inside. I actually believe it's a DLC as well, but I just wanted to make sure. Yes, exactly, it's a DLC driver, and that justifies then what I was saying in terms of the amount of detail that it has up top. Clean bass with a lot of quality associated with its dynamic. It's super detailed, but with a high level amount of musicality to it. Vocals are incredible. Seriously, vocals are something really stand out without question. Plenty of extension, scales really well. With the TRI tips here, the Clarion tips, it sounds something. Look, I know I'm repeating myself because I'm really not finding the proper words to express how impressive the Tourbillon Pro is. It is really a very good IM. As I just mentioned, at $100, it makes perfect sense and it's more than solid value. At $60, it's a no-brainer. It's one of those IMs that you don't even question, or should I buy it or not, because the accessories, the cable, the carrying case, the tips that it brings, everything it's ticked. All the right things are ticked, and it's worth the money. Much like the NICEHCK Tears, it's one of those IMs that what it offers for the overall package is so good that you can't really question whether you should I no. It's a definite buy. in terms of its technicalities, I would say there's a tie between timbre and tonality, soundstage, and imaging. All those three, they just tie because they are all very, very good. I would go as far as saying that the Tourbillon would very, very likely be an IM that is a more sensible, not a more sensible, but if you don't like resin shells, let's put it this way, if you don't like resin shells because you think they are fragile and you want something that feels more solid and more chunky in your ears, this is a better IM in that aspect than the Pull or the Unichrome, and they cost basically the same thing. And that's, you know, I think with that statement I've said it everything. If for those that know me and that can read what I'm trying to say between the lines without offending anybody, the Puller Unichrome is really, really good, solid sounding AM. This, especially at that $60, 60 odd dollar price that you can get it for, it's not even a question if you should buy it. Okay, KBEAR Tourbillion Pro, top. And then finally, that brings us to the last IEM here, which is an IEM that I just received, which is this IEM here. And let's see if somebody knows what this is. Okay, let's see if somebody knows what this is. And what is this? This is the latest IEM from Venture Electronics, the UA, and I want to say the name properly here without offending anybody. Oh my god, this is not an easy one. The Guangzhi, I hope I'm saying it correctly. The UA is let's say I wouldn't call it a sub brand, but it's a series of products within the Venture Electronics realm. And the Guangzhi is the first IEM from them. It's priced at $50, and you know, the thing with Venture Electronics is they always give you a lot of value for your money. At least that's my opinion. For $50, you get a 10mm beryllium coated driver. You get a very nicely executed resin shell. This is not the stock cable. The stock cable is this one. Okay, I got this other cable from them as well. And I would make, I definitely say that definitely do get this cable. I trying to remember the name now, but definitely get this cable. It made a difference, and you know that I'm very opinionated when it comes to cables. And there's a number of packages that they usually offer Venture Electronics, and you can actually get the Guangzhi with some dongles and so on. But anyway, the UA, the Guangzhi, the thing that automatically impressed me was not only knowing that the value and the sound quality was going to be almost a guarantee, because Venture Electronics and Lee, they are more than well known in the market for having this relentless endeavor to always create products which really stand out. You know, Wild Lee is one of those individuals that can sometimes even come across maybe as arrogant by how assertive and how confident he is with regards to his product. But then you quickly realize, once you get to know him, and I've been able to speak with him a couple of times, you realize that it's not arrogance, it's just pure confidence in what he's doing, and it reflects itself in his products. Venture Electronics, like their products, not like their products, that's another question. The truth is, every single one of their products is built, it's designed, there's work put into it. It's not just slapping parts together and hoping for the best. No, there's true R&D there, and Lee is definitely one of the driving forces that justifies all of that. And if it wasn't that, or if it wasn't so, then their products wouldn't be well regarded as they have been, and they wouldn't be in business for as long as they've been. They've been in business and they are well regarded because of this go hard or go home kind of attitude with regards to audio. You either do it properly or then don't even bother, and that's the reality. And the moment you start listening to the Guangzhi, and the moment I listened to it, I was kind of just blown away. It's got this neutral, warm kind of sound, which has got this phenomenal mids, but with that clean, clear bass. non-fatiguing highs. You know, it's just I've heard some people say it's kind of a V-shaped. I don't really agree. I think it's just a kind of a neutralish, warm kind of signature, where everything is just being done very, very tastefully. Honestly, this is an IM that, again, I will say trades blows with the likes of the in-Earphone balance. And just in that statement alone, I'm already saying everything. This is an IM that has got that much quality, because, you know, the in-Earphone balance, I didn't consider it one of my favorite IMs for this year for no reason, for no, you know, just because I felt like it. No, it is an incredible sounding IM. Period. End of story. And for me to now sit here and say that the Guangzhi, and this is not only just, oh, this is just the you know, the early stages, Tony, because you've only listened to it. No, I spent the whole day today listening to this thing. Okay, and I went through, I don't know, I must have gone through easily some 30 IMs, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You know, and this is something else. The driver that they use, this beryllium coated driver, is definitely a quality driver. And you know, you notice it from the first instances that you listen to it. There's no it's not like oh, it sounds okay, or no. The moment you listen to it, you know, you feel, you can hear that you are sounding to a really well tuned IM. The tuning, as I was saying, is a tuning which is, again, kind of along the lines of the in-Earphone balance, the KBEAR Tourbillion Pro, the Pula Unichrome. It's got that sign of that type of vibe of tuning, where everything is just very balanced. And that's the thing that is just very surprising here with the Guangzhi, is the driver choice and the balance that they've been able to strike between how to tune that driver with the shell. Sorry, it's been really, really well done. Bass is clean, detailed, high quality, with enough punch to give all the genres that I like listening to, you know, the right amount of energy and emphasis that I like. Mids are just incredible, as I said. Mids, the mids from the Guangzhi, the mids from the Tourbillon-Pro, the mids from the Moondrop. I would say these three IMs, or the Moondrop Pop, I think these three are the ones that have the standout mids here, definitely in this group of IMs that I've just been talking to you about it for the last hour or so. Male, female vocals are incredible. It's got this very polished presentation to the sound. Okay, and like I mentioned earlier, the fact that I'm saying and comparing it with the likes of an in-Earphone balance, and saying that the in-Earphone balance, you know, you're getting that sort of a vibe of sound at a third of the price. I don't think I need to say much more. That's the reality. What else? In terms of the tips, I'm using the stock tips. It fits beautifully. It's a nice small little IM. Let me just get here the Tourbillon, for example, so you guys can actually see. It's a small little IM. It's not a big IM. Okay, nice and small. It's light. It fits my ears beautifully. Incredible. You know, the angle of the nozzle is perfect. Let me just get here the IVIPQ. This has got a similar design in the shell as well. Let me get both the right side as well. Where is it? Here we go. Okay, that's the IVIPQ, and that's the, okay, very similar, the shell, just thinner on the side of the Guangzhi, and that's why it actually ends up fitting nicer. But you can see the difference in thickness. Very noticeable. Okay, very noticeable. But the overall size of the faceplate and design is almost identical. And that's in essence it. I mean, there's really not much more that I can say. I've always enjoyed the products from Venture Electronics, so I knew that I was going to enjoy this. This is kind of a departure maybe from their previous tuning styles. The Venture, the CE is an incredible sounding IM. Honestly, I think that the driver that they use there as well is to a great degree the reason why the CE was such a phenomenal IM. It's got a more organic sound, more old school, more bass prominent. If I was to go back and forth between the two of them, like I did, I would say the Guangzhi is the more balanced, the one that's the most, almost, I don't want to use this word, but I'm going to say it's the more audiophile correct, while the other one is more old school audiophile engaging kind of sound. Big sound, big bass, really incredible. You know, but they are, it's not a question of one being better than the other. They are side grades. If you have the CE, I have no doubts that you will enjoy the sound of the Guangzhi, and if you have the Guangzhi, you will definitely like the CE. That's the way I think it's the most fair way to put it. And that's basically it, guys. I mean, like I said, there are a couple of IEMs here in this group of IEMs that I tested today which do stand out. The Venture Electronics, the Guangzhi is definitely one of those. I will definitely be doing other reviews with this IEM, and I can already jump the gun a little bit and say this definitely is part of that top 10 IEMs of 2025 under $100. Okay, the other IEM that definitely also made that group of IEMs that I truly enjoyed is the KBEAR, the Tourbillion. I can say that with confidence. The Moondrop, the Lan2 Pop edition is a really good IM. The only reason why I'm not including it, or I'm not going to include it, is because it basically has the same sound as these two. So it doesn't make sense to you know, add another IM into that favorite group, which are there's a few other IMs which are already part of it. But that's the only reason why I'm not putting the Moondrop. And then, you know, the reality is this, and as I mentioned before in this review, you have this, and you have the Moondrop, the Lan, or you have the Tourbillion. This is not an easy one to choose. I'll be honest with you. They all sound very, very, very similar. But not wanting to, I would still prefer the Tourbillon and the Venture Electronics over the Moondrop. Let's put it that way. And by no means am I taking anything away from the Moondrop. Okay. As for the other ones that are here, I think in the cheaper segment of the IMs that I tested here today, definitely the Neko is something that is worth considering. The Bell definitely is there. That's not even an if or a what or maybe or not. Definitely the Bell is part of that group. And last but not least, the NICEHCK, the Tears. The NICEHCK, the Tears, the main reason for it being here is that not only does it sound phenomenal with its, just with a normal cable, but for the price and the fact that it brings that DSP and everything, it just ticks a lot of right boxes, and for $30 you can't complain. Honestly, you just cannot complain. The Neko, because again, they've just done everything nicely. They've just ticked all the right boxes. Good, you know, phenomenal build, well tuned, nice driver, you know, nice accessories. That's it. The Bell, because they took the lessons learned from their previous two single DDs, and they made sure that this third one, the third one's the lucky one. I guess that's, I don't know, I'm not saying the saying correctly, but that's something along those lines. Definitely a really solid IM that plays really well and does justice not only to KiwiEars as a brand, but does justice as well, or makes itself an IM worth considering in this $30 price point. And that's that, guys. I think that's a wrap. Okay, let me just quickly run through the graphs and we'll call it a day. Okay, so let's talk graphs now quickly. I don't want to keep you guys here too much longer. Let's go here. Well, you know what? let's start here just with the KOZOY first, and then we'll go from that. So this is the KOZOY, the D1. As you can see, nothing offensive. Obviously, this is taking into account what I mentioned during the review, that this is using that wide bore, large size tip on the KOZOY from Panon, the liqueur tip, which kind of helps control a slight rise that occurs here with the other tips, and by doing that keeps things a little bit more in tabs, especially when the volume is raised. And the issue here that I say is this point here. See, 100 hertz corresponds to 1.5, and there's a lot of energy there which is not 100% mitigated and controlled by the energy that you have below here. The bass just sounds a little bit thin. It's a high quality bass, but it sounds a little bit thin. Okay, so that's the KOZOY. Then we have the Neko. This is, well, actually, let me just put both Nekos there. That's the Neko, the LE edition in the green. The one below is the yellow one. So they're exactly the same, as you can see. The Neko, nice amount of bass, really, actually, especially when you put the KOZOY next to it, you see what I mean. One has the bass that should be present, and the other one, I don't know. I think it's self-explanatory. That's the KOZOY, that's the Neko. The Neko, nice mid bass, clean, more than enough energy up top to keep things balanced and in good terms. Only when you really start pushing the volume, it just becomes a little bit less polished than desired. On the other hand, that 100 hertz point corresponds to above 2 kilohertz. There's a little bit of extra energy there, which is just about mitigated and controlled by the energy that we have here. But it's this mid-bass punch that ultimately helps control things there. Just that at higher volumes, things just are not what I ideally would have preferred. But anyway, it is what it is. Okay. Now, next is the TRI Trimonster, which I also talked about. Nice graph. I mean, especially when you compare it here with the NICEHCK, with the CVJ, the Neko. It's over here they're very similar. Up top, then what happens is the Trimonster, because of the way that it's been tuned, it scales better, but it's not as detailed at lower volumes and at mid volumes as the Neko. At higher volumes, the Neko just it's not even edgy. It just loses a little bit of that polish that it has at the lower volumes. I think it's the best way of putting it. Between the two of them, I would still prefer the Neko, to be honest with you. However good the Trimonster is, I would still prefer the Neko. Moving on to the other IVIPQ stuff that I have here. The original IVIPQ, the black, the IVIPQ 100 as it's called. The original one had this tuning here, okay, which had these peaks and so on and so forth, which I wasn't really a fan of. And so what I did in this original one was I added that filter from the Tanya or the oxygen, and it just cleaned up things here completely, and that just made the IM completely, I mean, it's a totally different beast. Okay, they then subsequently in 2024 introduced their own retune of that original one, which is way similar to, significantly similar to what I did to my one. The thing is, they kind of took down the bass a little bit, and I think that made it lose itself, because that 100 point now came to 1.5. It just became too clean and detailed. It kind of became too clinical, okay, for its own good. And then in this latest version now, the 2025 version, they have now gone back to giving it more bass. I'm just going to make it red here so you guys can see it better. So it's basically got the same mids and upper mids and treble, but they've given it more bass, and overall the sound is really, without a doubt, out of the three, the best, and one of the best sounding IEMs from IVIPQ, without question. It's loads of sub bass focus. That 100 point corresponds there to 2.1 kilohertz. The energy found there is more than well complemented by the energy we have from behind. It's a beryllium coated driver. It sounds really good, honestly. The single DD from IVIPQ is a really special IEM, and were it not, as I mentioned, the IEMs that are present in this group here, it would definitely be a standout, without question. And I mean, if you can get this for one of those special prices that sometimes they come up with, I'll be very honest, go for it. You're not going to regret it. If you can get this at $30 or $30 something, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. It's probably an IM that will be sensible to buy over the likes of, for example, the Neko, which I've just placed, because it's a more well-mannered IM than the Neko, definitely. Especially the higher volumes. You know, you can see the difference between the two of them is not significant. It's not significant. There's more bass here in the IVIPQ, definitely, but again, not all the music is gonna have this much amount of information. They both got about the same mid bass info, and then the energy, the way that the energy is done up top, especially in the treble area, you know, on the IVIPQ is more polished, and it doesn't suffer from that lack of, let's say, mannerisms that the Neko suffers. So that's the IVIPQ there out of the way. Let me actually just clear some of these IEMs here so things are a little bit more understandable, and I'm just going to leave here the ones that matter for the end. Apologies here. Apologies. Okay, we can take this one as well out. Alright, let's go now to the KiwiEars. So, KiwiEars, we have the Dolce, we have the Belle, and we have the Cadenza. Actually, let's start with the Cadenza first so we can see the transition into the Belle. Cadenza, clean, detailed, really nice sounding IM. 100 hertz point corresponds basically to 2 point something, the amount of energy, nice. Actually, if you look at it carefully, if you are paying attention to it carefully, I'm just going to place here the IVIPQ, very similar to the IVIPQ. Okay, so you can understand where the similarities. The IVIPQ just got a little extra amount of bass, which complements that lack of bass that sometimes the Cadenza had. Okay, all right. So that then gave place to the Dolce, which complemented things with a little extra mid-bass slam, but they increased unnecessarily that area there. Not a good way to go. And then finally now the Belle. And the Belle has basically got the mids and upper mids and treble of the original Cadenza with the bass performance, the mid-bass performance of the Dolce. It's self-explanatory. You know, I don't think I need to say much more. It just sounds really good. It's clean, it's detailed, it's fun, it's engaging. It's got a very musical vibe to it. Compared here to the IVIPQ, I'm just going to change the color to black so you can see the difference. Comparing the Belle to the IVIPQ, you can see again the similarities that there are between the two of them. Just that difference there, really, but you not really noticeable. But what makes the Belle stand out is it costs $30 as opposed to $50. So you know it's just an IM that makes more sense monetarily wise, because sound wise they are very similar. So that's the KiwiEars stuff out of the way. So we're just going to leave the Belle here. I'm going to do away with the Dolce, do away with the Cadenza as well. We don't need it. And we're going to go on to the Lan. So now we're going to start with the original Lan. That's the OG Lan with its DLC driver, thin bass. I mean, you could see the 100 point corresponds there to 1.5, so a lot of energy, detail, very clinical sounding, but a little bit sterile at times. You know, detail monster without doubt. That's it. The reference. A little extra amount of bass, but not even perceivable, because you then also have an extra increase of detail up top. More detail, cleaner detail, better quality detail than the original, but I don't know. I think the sterile factor is also increased, so it's overly clinical in my opinion. The Pop, on the other hand, basically the same amount of detail as the reference, as you can see, with that extra amount of bass energy, which just makes it a nicer, more balanced sounding IM in my opinion, honestly. Compared here to the Belle, as you can see, they kind of are almost identical compared to the Belle. Compared to the IVIPQ, again, a lot of similarities. You can see a lot of the similarities here in the tuning, and that goes to, you know, along what I say plenty of times. It's just minor things that then will differentiate the sound between IEMs, and it's the drivers that they're using. The differences between IEMs are not monumental. You know, that's the reality. Okay, so Moondrop Lan Pop Edition, Moondrop Lan2 Pop Edition. Nice sounding IM, really nice sounding IM. Let's go on to, actually I forgot to show you the Aria. Let me just quickly show you here the Moondrop Aria compared to the LAN, not the reference, but the LAN, the Pop edition. There we go. Okay, the Pop edition's got just a little bit extra more bass, so you can see why I said it's basically an Aria 2 with just a smidge more bass. Okay, and because it's again a glass diaphragm, the clarity up top is just a little bit different to the Aria 2, but very, very similar sounding, not monumental differences between the two of them. Okay, so that's that. Moving on to the NICEHCK, the Tears. I think the graph is self-explanatory. Okay, really solid tuning, solid. With the DSP, I'm trying to find it here now. With the DSP, this was the balanced tuning that the DSP offered. I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. I didn't see need for this or for this either as well. So I made two custom tunings. One of them, and this was done just very quickly, being this one here, which actually I did enjoy. Let me just take away that one. So my one is, let me just make it in, let me put it in black. Actually no, let me put it red so you guys can see it stand out. Red, there we go, red. I really enjoyed this little tuning. I gave it a little bit extra smidge of energy there, dropped this point here a little bit more between the mid bass and the mids, and it just honestly sounded really good. The limiting factor then would be obviously the internal amplifier of the DSP. But this tuning, and I can provide the tuning if you guys want to use it with a dongle and then try it out, really good, really good. But going just for the cable only, 100 hertz point there corresponds basically to 2 kilohertz, just a smidge below, but the energy we have there is more than mitigated by the energy we have here. It's clean, it's detailed. The only thing with the Tears is that with certain songs, less than other IMs here, but when it starts scaling, it can just lose its composure ever so slightly. So I would say choose carefully the tips, because it doesn't have a nozzle angle which is very user friendly, I would say. But definitely, and as I mentioned as well in the tuning, that internal Labyrinth that they used inside is definitely working. It's clean, it's detailed, great bass, very high quality bass, very high quality mid range. Not even an issue there. Okay. So Tears done. Now let's move on here to actually let me show you the BQEYZ Nie first. BQEYZ Nie. Okay, typical type of tuning from BQEYZ. You see all these peaks and so on, and you kind of listen to think, this is gonna, no, this is how it is. And the thing is, BQEYZ always has this magic that just makes things work, and it works. That's the reality. It just works. It's an 11mm driver, as I mentioned. You do notice this little recess here with certain vocals, especially the female vocals, but otherwise it just sounds phenomenal. And I actually think that when they say it's a gaming IM, they're not giving it its deserved merit. I think that it does a really good job with music. It scales very well. At higher volumes, actually, it's where it's in its element, in my opinion. And it just sounds good. Bass is clean, it's detailed. We're talking about a bass gain of roughly 8 dBs, not even 7 dB, 7.5 dBs. The pin again is basically the same thing. Everything is, it's very balanced. Although we have this 100 hertz point corresponding there to more or less 1.6 kilohertz, the energy that we have there, and that tip, and the fact that this is an 11mm driver, it doesn't sound anything as you would think of like, oh, it's going to be bright. No, it's got a very organic, very warm, old school kind of presentation. It almost kind of has a presentation which is kind of a little bit of reminiscent of the Venture Electronics, the SIA, to be honest. Okay, so that's that. Now, Tourbillon, there we go. Okay, that's the Tourbillon, the KBEAR Tourbillion. And much like some of the IMs that I've presented to you today and before, let me just get here the Moondrop quickly. You can see Tourbillon, same, Moondrop Lan2 Tourbillon, same thing. The differences that exist here is in the driver. The Tourbillon uses DLC, the Moondrop uses the glass driver. The Moondrop is slightly more detailed, but that slight extra amount of detail makes it, for my ears particularly, not sound as natural as the Tourbillon sounds. The Tourbillon sounds more natural, more realistic. And when you take something like, for example, where is it here? I'm trying to find the Puller Unichrome. Puller Unichrome. And when you take something like the Puller Unichrome and you put it here into the equation, let me just change the color to black so it stands out. You understand what I'm talking about. The Puller Unichrome, it sounds very balanced. Everything sounds very, and you can see how the three of them almost have identical tunings, but the balance that we get in the Unichrome, or the balance that we get in the Tourbillon, so Tourbillon or on the Unichrome, is just ever slightly more polished than on the Moondrop Lan2. And again, guys, I'm not taking anything away from the Lan2. The Lan2, the Pop, is definitely a really solid IM. Solid IM. Take nothing but nothing away from it, trust me. So that's that. And now let's go for the Venturi Electronics, the Guangzhi. I hope I'm not saying that name honestly wrong. And again, another situation where we have this kind of Puller Unichrome kind of vibe, where we get this into outer balance kind of vibe. The into outer balance has got less bass, but when you listen to it, the difference between them is not what the graph is showing, trust me. So be it the into outer balance, be it the KBEAR Tourbillion Pro, be it the Puller Unichrome, be it the Venturi Electronics UA Guangzhi, they all have a very similar vibe. I could even maybe have included here the impact. Where's the impact? Yeah, here we go. Yes, I've just placed the impact. The impact, let me place it in red. You could even say that maybe the impact might even be a little bit more similar to this group than the balance to a certain extent, especially because it also costs roughly the same thing. And you wouldn't be wrong. You do notice that the impact, which is the red line here, is maybe a little bit not as forward in the vocals, while something like the Tourbillon is probably the one that has the most forward vocals. But everything in any one of these IMs here is all about being extremely balanced. I think that's the best way that I can describe it. I mean, I've got here now just the Puller Unichrome and the into out of the impact. Both are extremely balanced. That's the reality. And then when you put the Venturi Electronics, the UA, the Guangzhi into the equation, that balance is also there, and you know, even at times perhaps even more well obtained, especially compared to the impact. It doesn't have the extension of the impact. Fair enough, granted, I'll give that much. Although it seems the same, the extension of the impact is slightly a little bit more, but the way that the vocals, female vocals, the way the instruments come across here in this whole area of the mids, upper mids, and treble, it's just absolutely exquisite. Honestly, I mean, I cannot but not emphasize enough how well the balance, this kind of very high quality premium sound that is you know done by the Guangzhou is because it's really good. And you know, you get this feeling on something like the balance, like the into outer balance, and that's why I compared it to the balance, which is, you know, like I said, $150 roughly, and to be comparing it to something like the balance, and you're getting that sort of quality at a third of the price, automatically, you know, you have to question yourself. Okay, maybe I would like the balance, but I can't afford it because it's just out of my reach. Maybe I'll opt for the Guangzhi, for the UA Guangzhi, because it will give you very much the same sort of sound presentation, guys. And that's basically it. I mean, there's really not much more that I can say. I think I've more than explained and compared, and this wasn't about, you know, finding IMs which are better or worse than others. It was just about showing IMs that I've had here for quite a while, some of them, and bringing them to your guys' attention. And then you know, this final part, just kind of mentioning the ones that are definitely the standouts, you know, the ones that are, I think, in my opinion, worthwhile. Some are valid attempts like the KOZOY, the D1, definitely without a doubt, but in that sub $300 or up to $40, let's say, definitely the Neko and the NICEHCK, the Tears are the two standouts without a question. And then going up a little higher in price, the KOZOY, sorry, the KOZOY, the KBEAR, the Tourbillion Pro is definitely one of those that deserves attention, and the UA, the Guangzhi is the other one that also deserves attention, because they are standout products without a question. Oh, and I was forgetting about the KiwiEars, the BELLE, definitely the BELLE under that, you know, up to that $30 something price point. The BELLE, if I have to say BELLE and Neko, definitely the BELLE. If I have to say BELLE and Tears, I'll say in terms of sound for sound, BELLE. Because you have the DSP, Tears. Let's put it that way, to be totally fair. Comparing the UA Guangzhi with the Tourbillon Pro, and for the sake of it, let's just say the Lan2, the Pop, I would say the one that ultimately kind of edges things out ever so slightly in terms of sound is the Guangzhi. Build quality and value for money, definitely the Tourbillon Pro. And the Lan it's a really good IM. It's just got two tough competitors there. That's the reality. As for the IVIPQ, the Single DD, the D100, the 2025 edition, it's a really good IM, and one that I would say worthwhile considering if you can find it at a discounted price, definitely. All right, guys, as always, like and subscribe. This has been a hell of a long review, but then again, I've talked about a whole bunch of IEMs, yeah, so I hope I'm able to satisfy everybody. Take care now, bye-bye.